So here we have bridging off of what we just learned about parallel lines means that you have two lines that have the same slope. Perpendicular lines means that you have two lines that have slopes that are opposite sides and reciprocal of each other, and neither, basically you don't have lines that have the same slopes and you don't have lines that intersect at 90-degree angles. On ALEKS, the questions will look more like this. They're going to give you line 1, but they're not going to give you the slope. They're actually going to give you two ordered pairs. And then they'll give you another line. And then they'll say, hey, this, you can find the slope given two ordered pairs. So what we're going to do is do these steps here. So what you're going to see on the test is that you're going to be determining parallel, perpendicular, or neither. The first thing that you're going to have to do is find the slope of each line. And we talked about how to find slope. We kind of condensed it here. We said, remember, you're going to give some ordered pairs, label each ordered pair as an x and a y. Remember your formula, the change in y over the change in x. Plug in the values in that bare bone formula, and then simplify and reduce, okay? Once you do that, then you'll have the slope of each of those two lines. Once you have the slopes, then you can compare the slopes. If they are identical, the same, you stop, you're done. You just say you have parallel lines. If they're not the same, if they're different slopes, then you can't say parallel. What you want to do is multiply those two slopes together. If the two slopes together, you get an answer or product of -1, then stop, you have neither. Or I'm sorry, you have perpendicular. The two lines would be perpendicular if your answer is -1. And if you get any other answer, then that's when you say neither. Okay, so let's take a look at this guy. So the first thing I want to do is find the slope. So remember, each ordered pair has an x and a y value. So there's an x and a y, an x and a y. Now that you know that, remember, for line 1, let's use the bare bones formula. Make sure you use the parentheses for beginners. And then let's see how our y's changed. So I went from a -3 over to a -6. Remember, changing y on top. So I went from here to there, because I read from left to right. And then for my x's, I went from here to here. Once I do that, then simplify. You'll have -3, a +6, +3, -2. Then you know that a -3 and a +6, you're going to get 3. And 3 and a -2, you're going to get 1. Okay. Remember, I like to use these parentheses because you might not realize this is a +6. A lot of people say, oh, -3 and a -6 is -9. I'm like, no, you got to distribute. So make sure you distribute so you know it's a +6 and a negative and a positive. You have to subtract. Now that you know the slope of line 1, you have to find the slope of line 2. So we're going to do the same thing. Use your bare bones formula. Now for line 2, let's see how, remember, change in y's. You went from a 4 to a 7. And let's see how our x's change. You went from a -3 to a -2. So let's calculate. We're going to simplify. Remember, slip in your 1's. So 1 times 4, -1 times 7, that's how we get a -7. 1 times -3, Negative 1 times negative 2, remember? Positive 2. So 4 and a negative 7, you're going to get a negative 3. Negative 3 and a positive 2 is a negative 1. You know that a negative 3 divided by a negative 1, you can simplify by dividing out, and you get a positive 3. So we found out for slope number 1, or for line number 1, you get m equals 3. For line number 2, you found out that your slope is 3. So once we calculate the slope for both lines, remember, find the slope of each line, so I got m equals 3 and m equals 3, you're going to compare the slopes. So now that I know, are they identical or are they different? I see 3 and 3, that's identical. So if they're the same, then we can stop. And you say that we have parallel lines. That's it. That's how you determine parallel, perpendicular, and neither if they give you two lines. If they give you a slope of 3 and you need to find a parallel line, you just got to remember it has to be the same slope, 3. If this post had been perpendicular, then if you had slope as 3, to be perpendicular, it has to have opposite signs. So positive, this would have been negative. And if this is 3, this would have been the reciprocal, 1/3. So parallel, they have to be identically the same. Perpendicular, remember, the slopes have to be opposite signs and reciprocal of each other. So when we compare, if they're the same, parallel.